Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Perseverance, staring at the massive ship that had just appeared on his screens. The alien vessel was 10 times bigger than his exploration ship. Its dark metal hull was covered with strange symbols that glowed red in the darkness of space. "Sir, we're getting a message," said Lieutenant Boram Kim, his younger sister who worked as the communications officer. Her voice was shaky. "It's coming through on all channels." Daeho nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge take a step back. The alien was huge, almost 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin that looked like armor. Its 4 eyes glowed yellow, and when it spoke, its voice was deep and cold. "I am Admiral Veltar of the Vextai Empire," the creature said. "You will listen carefully, small beings. Your species has been found. Your world has been marked for conquest." Daeho felt his heart racing, but he kept his face calm. Around him, his crew of 25 officers watched in silence. They had traveled for 3 years to explore this part of space. They never expected to find something like this. "Your planet will submit to the Empire within 1 rotation of your star," Admiral Veltar continued. 24 of your hours. If you refuse, we will destroy every living thing on your world. This is not a request. This is how things are done." The alien's image disappeared, leaving the bridge in complete silence. "Captain," whispered Engineer Hansol Park, "what do we do?" Daeho looked at his crew. These were good people. Scientists, explorers, dreamers who wanted to see what was out there among the stars. Now they faced something that could end everything they knew. "Boram, open a channel to Earth. Priority 1. Get me President Sora Park immediately." 3 hours later, Daeho found himself on a video call with the most powerful people on Earth. President Sora Park looked tired. She had been pulled from sleep to deal with this crisis. Defense Minister Hyun-woo Lee sat beside her, his face serious. Chief Science Officer Ye-jin Choi was there too, taking notes on everything. "Tell me again what they said exactly," President Park asked. Daeho repeated the alien's words. As he spoke, he watched the leaders' faces grow more worried. "How big is their ship?" asked Defense Minister Lee. "Our scanners show it's about 3 kilometers long. Our biggest warship is only 400 meters. And sir, this might just be 1 ship. We don't know how many more they have." Dr. Ye-jin Choi looked up from her notes. "Captain Kim, did you get any readings on their technology?" "Some. Their energy output is incredible. Their weapons could probably destroy our ship with 1 shot. And their shields are unlike anything we've ever seen." President Park rubbed her temples. "Do we know anything about this Vextai Empire?" "Nothing, Madam President. This is first contact, but not the kind we hoped for." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. Earth had 7 billion people. They had been working on space technology for less than 200 years. These aliens had ships that could cross the galaxy. "What are our options?" President Park asked. Defense Minister Lee spoke first. "We could surrender, give them what they want and hope they treat us well." "Or?" the President asked. "Or we fight." Dr. Choi shook her head. "With what? Our best weapons are nuclear missiles. Their ship probably has shields that could stop everything we have." "Maybe," said Lee. "But we don't know for sure until we try." President Park looked directly at Daeho through the screen. "Captain Kim, you're the only human who has seen them face to face. What do you think?" Daeho thought about the alien admiral's words. The way he spoke, like humans were just insects to be stepped on, like Earth was just another planet to add to their collection. "Madam President, I think they've done this before. Many times. They expect us to be scared. They expect us to give up without a fight." "And should we?" she asked. Daeho looked around at his crew. Boram was listening carefully. Hansol had his hands clenched into fists. Navigator Soo-jin Park was staring at the star charts, probably thinking about home. "I have a question," Daeho said. "If we surrender, what happens to us? Do we become slaves? Do they let us live normal lives? Or do they just use us until we're not useful anymore?" No one had an answer. "Admiral Veltar didn't offer us a deal," Daeho continued. "He gave us an order. Submit or die. That tells me everything I need to know about how they see us. President Park nodded slowly. You're right. If we surrender, we're giving up any chance to control our own future. But if we fight, we might all die, Dr. Choi said. We might die if we surrender too, Defense Minister Lee replied. At least if we fight, we die as free people. The debate continued for another hour. Daeho listened as Earth's leaders discussed the impossible choice. Fight against impossible odds or surrender and hope for mercy from creatures who had conquered the galaxy. Finally, President Park called for silence. Captain Kim, I need you to do something for me. Send a message back to this Admiral Veltar. Tell him we need more time to consider his offer. How much time should I ask for? Don't ask for any, just tell him we need time. See what he says. Daeho nodded and closed the channel to Earth. He looked at Boram. Open a channel to the Vextai ship. Admiral Veltar's huge form appeared on the screen again. Speak, small being. Admiral, my people need more time to consider your offer. The alien's 4 eyes seemed to glow brighter. There is nothing to consider. You submit or you die. These are the only choices. But surely, there is no but. Your species is weak. Your technology is primitive. You have no choice but to obey. Daeho felt something hot rise in his chest. Anger. This creature was talking about his home, his family, his entire species like they were nothing. What if we refuse? Daeho asked. Admiral Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter. Then you will join the other foolish species that thought they could resist the Empire. Their worlds are now empty. Their names are forgotten. How many worlds? Daeho asked. 847 star systems have joined the Empire. All of them understood the wisdom of surrender. Eventually, Daeho thought about that number. 847 worlds, billions, maybe trillions of beings who had faced this same choice, and all of them had given up. You have 20 hours remaining, Admiral Veltar said. Use them wisely. Human. The screen went dark. Daeho stood alone on his bridge looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. His parents lived in Seoul. His girlfriend Mira was probably asleep, not knowing that aliens were threatening to destroy everything she had ever known. Boram walked up beside him. What are we going to do, brother? Daeho thought about all the history lessons he had learned as a child. Stories of people who faced impossible odds but fought anyway. Stories of small groups who stood up to huge empires and somehow won. He opened the channel to Earth again. President Park's face appeared instantly. Madam President, I have Admiral Veltar's response. He refuses to give us more time. He says we have 20 hours to surrender or face total destruction. I see. Captain, what's your recommendation? Daeho took a deep breath. I recommend we tell him exactly what free people tell bullies. Which is, no. President Park smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Send the message, Captain. Daeho turned to Boram. Open a channel to the Vextai ship. All frequencies. When Admiral Veltar's image appeared, Daeho stood straight and looked directly into those 4 yellow eyes. Admiral Veltar, I have Earth's answer to your ultimatum. And we decline your offer. If you want our world, come and take it. For the first time, the alien admiral looked surprised, then angry. You choose death, human. So be it. The channel closed and Daeho knew there was no going back. Admiral Veltar stood in the command center of his massive powerful empire in the galaxy, staring at the small human vessel in the distance. But for the first time in years of conquest, no species had ever said no to the Empire. Someone ready to. They begged, fight back. They cried, they offered treasure and slaves, but they always surrendered. Admiral, said his second-in-command, Commander Kexra, the human ship is not retreating. Should we destroy it? Veltar's 4 eyes focused on the tiny ship. It was so small compared to his dreadnought. One shot from his main cannon would turn it into dust. No, let them watch. When we destroy their homeworld, I want them to see what happens to those who refuse the Empire. Back on Earth, President Sora Park stood in the Emergency Command Center, beneath Seoul. The room was full of military officers, scientists, and government officials. Everyone was working fast, preparing for what might be humanity's last day. Defense Minister Hyun-woo Lee walked up to her with a tablet full of numbers. "Madam President, I have the military report." "How bad is it?" she asked. "We have 200 nuclear missiles ready to launch, 50 fighter jets equipped with our best weapons, 3 space stations with defense systems, and about 12 hours before they reach Earth." President Park looked at the numbers. It seemed impossible. How could Earth fight against an empire that controlled almost 1,000 worlds? "What about Dr. Choi's research?" she asked. Dr. Ye-jin Choi looked up from her computer screen. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She had been working for 10 hours straight trying to understand the alien technology. "I have some good news and some bad news," Dr. Choi said. "The bad news is their technology is about 500 years ahead of ours. Their energy shields can probably stop our missiles. And the good news? Their technology is very advanced. But it's also very complicated. They use energy for everything. Shields, weapons, engines. If we could find a way to disrupt their power systems..." Defense Minister Lee nodded. "Like cutting the power lines in a building?" "Exactly. But we need to get close enough to study their technology. And we need time to figure out how it works." President Park turned to look at the big screen showing Captain Kim's ship. "Can we get more ships out there to help the Perseverance? Have 3 more exploration ships. They're not warships, but they have some weapons. I can have them there in 6 hours." "Do it." Meanwhile, Captain Dae-ho Kim was studying the alien ship through his telescopes. His sister Bo-ram was running scans, trying to learn everything they could about their enemy. "Brother, look at this," Bo-ram said, pointing to her screen. "Their ship has huge energy readings, but the energy is all concentrated in certain areas." "What does that mean?" "Maybe their power doesn't cover the whole ship equally. Some parts might be weaker than others." Engineer Han-Sol Park joined them at the scanner station. "Captain, I've been thinking about what Dr. Choi said. If their technology is so advanced, maybe it's also predictable." "How do you mean?" "Think about it. They've conquered 800 worlds using the same methods. They probably use the same tactics every time because they work. But what if someone tried something different?" Dae-ho nodded slowly. It made sense. If you always won using the same strategy, why would you change? "Han-Sol, what kind of different tactics are you thinking about?" "Well, all their weapons seem to be energy-based. Lasers, plasma cannons, things like that. But our ship has old-fashioned kinetic weapons, simple rail guns that fire metal slugs." "You think their shields might not be designed to stop physical objects?" "It's possible. Their empire probably hasn't fought anyone who uses primitive weapons in centuries." Before Dae-ho could respond, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Bo-ram looked at her instruments with wide eyes. "Captain, multiple ships are approaching, big ones." On the main screen, they watched as 5 more Vex-Tai warships appeared out of hyperspace. Each one was as large as Admiral Veltar's flagship. The human ship was now surrounded by enough firepower to destroy a planet. "Bo-ram, get me Admiral Veltar." The alien's face appeared on screen, and this time he looked annoyed. "Human captain, you have seen our fleet. Surrender now, and I will. Make your death quick." "Admiral, I have a question. In all your conquests, has any species ever fought back?" Veltar's 4 eyes narrowed. "Some tried. They all died. Their weapons were useless against our shields. Their ships were destroyed in minutes." "What kind of weapons did they use?" "Energy. Weapons like all civilized species. Plasma cannons, ion beams, particle accelerators. Primitive, but they tried." Dae-ho smiled. "Thank you, Admiral. That's very helpful information." The screen went dark and Veltar was left wondering why the human had looked so pleased. 4 hours later, 3 more human ships arrived. The UES Determination, Courage, and Hope took positions around the Perseverance. Captain Dae-ho opened a channel to all 3 ships. "Captains, this is Kim. We have a plan, but it's going to be dangerous." Captain Min-ho Lee of the Determination responded. "We're listening, Dae-ho. The aliens expect us to use energy weapons like every other species they've fought. But our ships have railguns, physical projectiles that might punch through their energy shields." "That's a big might," said Captain So-young Park of the Hope. It is, but it's better than no chance at all. Here's what we're going to do. Deho explained his plan. It was simple, but risky. The 4 human ships would split up and attack the alien fleet from different directions. They would use their railguns to fire tungsten slugs at high speed, hoping to penetrate the energy shields. If this doesn't work, we'll all be dead in about 30 seconds, Captain Young-Soo Kim of the Courage pointed out. If we don't try, we'll be dead anyway, Deho replied, and so will everyone on Earth. An hour later, the human ships moved into attack position. Admiral Veltar watched from his command center with amusement. 4 tiny ships against his mighty fleet. It would be over quickly. Admiral, Commander Kexra said, they're charging their weapons. Energy signatures? Veltar asked. No, sir. These readings are different. I don't recognize the weapon type. Veltar's amusement faded slightly. Different how? Before Kexra could answer, the humans attacked. The Perseverance fired first. Its railgun launched a tungsten slug at incredible speed. The projectile hit Veltar's ship directly in the center, and something unexpected happened. The energy shield flickered and failed. The tungsten slug punched through the hull, creating a hole 10 meters wide. Impossible, Veltar roared. Our shields are impenetrable. Sir, the other human ships are firing. 3 more tungsten slugs hit 3 more Vextai ships. Each shot went straight through the energy shields like they weren't there. Alarms began ringing throughout the alien fleet. Admiral Veltar stared at the damage reports in disbelief. For the first time in his long military career, his ships had been hurt by an enemy. These primitive humans had found a way to bypass technology that had made the Empire invincible for centuries. Commander Kexra, return fire. Destroy those ships immediately. The Vextai fleet began shooting their plasma cannons at the human ships, but the humans were already moving, using their smaller size and speed to avoid the massive energy beams. Captain, Deho watched as one plasma blast barely missed his ship. The heat was incredible, even from a near miss. Boram, damage report. Hull temperature is rising, but we're still intact. The railgun is ready to fire again. Target their command ship. Let's see if we can make Admiral Veltar really angry. The second shot hit Veltar's ship in the engine section. The massive vessel shuddered and began to list to one side. On the bridge of the Vextai flagship, chaos ruled. Officers ran back and forth trying to repair systems that had never been damaged before. Admiral Veltar stood in the center of it all, his 4 eyes blazing with rage and something else he hadn't felt in centuries. Fear. Get me a channel to all Vextai ships in this system, he commanded. Sir, do it now. When the channel opened, Veltar's voice was heard by every alien ship in the fleet. All vessels, concentrate fire on the human ships, use maximum power. I want them destroyed immediately. But as the alien ships turned to focus their attack, they received an unexpected message from the human captain. Admiral Veltar, this is Captain Kim. We've sent a full report of this battle to Earth. Our people know your shields can be defeated. Your empire isn't as invincible as you thought. Veltar realized the implications immediately. If word spread that the Vextai could be beaten, every enslaved world in the empire might revolt. For the first time in 800 years of conquest, Admiral Veltar understood what his enemies had always felt when facing the empire. Desperation. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On the planet Zephyr, in the Outer Rim territories, a group of enslaved miners stopped their work to whisper about the impossible news. Is it true? Asked Cole, a blue-skinned Zephyrian who had been a slave for 30 years. Did the humans really make the Vextai ships bleed? His friend Nara nodded carefully, watching for guards. The message came through the underground networks. 4 tiny human ships damaged 5 Vextai warships. Their shields failed. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds. Species that had given up hope were hearing something they never expected. The Vextai Empire could be beaten. Back on Earth, Dr. Ye-Jin Choi had not slept in 2 days. She stood in her laboratory, surrounded by computer screens showing data from the space battle. President So-Ra Park and Defense Minister Hyun-Woo Lee stood beside her, waiting for her report. Tell me you have good news, President Park said. Doctor, Choi rubbed her tired eyes. I do, but it's complicated. The Vextai technology is incredibly advanced, but it has a weakness we can exploit. What kind of weakness? They've been using the same technology for 500 years. Their shields, their weapons, their tactics. Nothing has changed because nothing needed to change. They always won. Defense Minister Lee leaned forward. So they've become predictable? Exactly. Look at this. Dr. Choi pointed to a screen showing the battle data. When our railguns hit their ships, their shields didn't just fail, they overloaded. The energy feedback damaged other systems too. What does that mean for us? President Park asked. It means we can hurt them. But we need to be smart about it. They have thousands of ships, we have dozens, we can't fight them in a straight battle. Then how do we fight them? Dr. Choi smiled for the first time in days. We fight like humans. Meanwhile, Captain Dae-ho Kim was learning the same lesson in space. His 4 ships had damaged the Vextai fleet, but now they were being hunted by angry aliens who wanted revenge. Captain, Boram called from her station, 6 Vextai ships are moving to surround us. They're trying to trap us. Dae-ho studied the tactical display. The alien ships were moving in a perfect formation, like they had done this maneuver 1,000 times before, which they probably had. Hansol, how are our engines? Running hot, but we can still move fast. Faster than those big alien ships. Good. Boram, send a message to the other captains. Tell them to follow my lead and be ready for anything. What happened next would be studied in military schools for generations. Instead of trying to fight the superior alien fleet in a direct battle, Captain Dae-ho did something the Vextai had never seen before. He ran away. But he didn't just run. He led the 6 Vextai ships on a chase through the asteroid field near Jupiter. The human ships were small and fast. They could dart between the space rocks like fish swimming through coral. The massive alien ships had to be more careful. This is cowardly, Admiral Veltar growled as he watched the chase. Stand and fight like warriors. But Dae-ho wasn't being cowardly. He was being smart. As the Vextai ships chased him through the asteroids, they had to spread out. They couldn't use their formation tactics in the narrow spaces between the rocks. Now, Dae-ho whispered. The 4 human ships suddenly stopped running and turned around. Instead of 1 human ship facing 6 aliens, it was now 4 humans against 6 aliens spread out over several kilometers. The odds were much better. The IB railguns fired again. This time they hit 2 Vextai ships that were separated from their fleet. Without support from their companions, both alien vessels took critical damage. Impossible, Admiral Veltar screamed. They're using primitive tactics. Commander Kexra looked at his admiral with confusion. Sir, should we not use primitive tactics too? We are the Vextai Empire. We do not lower ourselves to such methods. That was exactly what Captain Dae-ho was counting on. 3 days later, the situation had changed completely. More human ships had arrived from Earth. Cargo vessels, exploration ships, even some old military ships that had been retired. They weren't warships, but Dr. Choi's team had equipped them all with railguns. More importantly, the humans had learned something about war that the Vextai had forgotten: how to adapt. Captain Min-ho Lee commanded a group of converted cargo ships. His mission was to attack Vextai supply lines, the ships that brought food, fuel, and ammunition to the main fleet. Remember, he told his pilots, we don't try to fight their warships. We hit their supply ships and run before their fighters arrive. It worked perfectly. The Vextai had grown used to fighting enemies who faced them directly. They didn't know how to deal with enemies who attacked weak targets and avoided strong ones. On Earth's moon, Colonel Mi-young Lee was preparing for something even more dangerous. Intelligence reports showed that the Vextai had landed troops on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. They were setting up a base to launch their final attack on Earth. Colonel Lee had volunteered to lead the first human ground attack against Vextai warriors. Everyone knew it was probably a suicide mission. The aliens were 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor, and stronger than any human. Sir, Sergeant Jinwoo Park said as they prepared for the mission, are you sure about this plan? Colonel, Lee checked her equipment one more time. Jinwoo, what did they teach us in military school about fighting a stronger enemy? Don't fight fair, sir. Exactly. The Vextai expect us to line up and shoot at each other like gentlemen. We're going to do something different. The attack on Europa began at midnight local time. Colonel Lee led 50 human soldiers against a Vextai base that held 200 alien warriors. By every military calculation, the humans should have been wiped out in minutes. Instead, something else happened. The humans didn't attack the base directly. They used explosives to collapse tunnels, cutting off sections of the base from each other. They used smoke and darkness to confuse the aliens, who relied on their advanced sensors. They set traps and used guerrilla tactics that the Vextai had never encountered. Most importantly, they fought like they were desperate. Because they were. Sergeant Jin Woo Park found himself face to face with a Vextai warrior in a narrow tunnel. The alien was twice his size and armed with an energy weapon that could cut through steel. Jin Woo had an old-fashioned rifle and a bag of explosives. The alien warrior, whose name was Thekmor, had fought in 50 battles across 20 worlds. He had never lost a single combat. He looked down at the small human and felt something like pity. "Surrender, little being," Thekmor said in broken English. "I will make your death quick." Jin Woo looked up at the towering warrior and did something that surprised both of them. He smiled. "You want to know the difference between you and me?" Jin Woo asked. "Speak. You fight because it's your job. I fight because if I lose, my little sister back on Earth dies. That makes me more dangerous than you'll ever be." The explosive charge Jin Woo had planted behind the alien warrior detonated. Thekmor, for all his strength and armor, had never learned to look for hidden bombs. The tunnel collapsed, trapping dozens of Vextai soldiers underground. The battle for Europa lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Vextai base was destroyed, and most of the alien warriors were dead or captured. Colonel Lee had lost only 12 soldiers. The victory sent shockwaves through the Vextai fleet. Admiral Veltar read the battle reports with growing alarm. His ground forces, which had never been defeated, had been crushed by humans using tactics that weren't even in the military databases. "How is this possible?" he asked Commander Kexra. "Sir, the humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They don't follow the rules of civilized warfare." "What rules are they breaking?" "All of them, sir. They attack supply lines instead of military targets. They use explosives and traps instead of direct combat. They retreat when they should attack and attack when they should retreat. It's like they're making up new rules as they go." Admiral Veltar was beginning to understand, something that terrified him. Every species the Empire had conquered had tried to fight like the Vextai. They used similar weapons, similar tactics, similar strategies. That's why they all lost. But humans didn't fight like anyone else. They fought like humans. Back on Earth, President Sora Park received the reports from Europa with relief and worry. Relief that humans could beat Vextai ground forces. Worry about what would come next. "Dr. Choi," she said, "how much time do we have before they bring their main fleet to Earth?" "Maybe a week. But Madam President, I think I know why we're winning these battles." "Tell me." "The Vextai have conquered so many worlds that they've forgotten how to really fight. They just overwhelm their enemies with superior technology." "But we don't have superior technology, so we have to be creative." Defense Minister Lee nodded. "They've become like a boxer who's always fought children. When they finally face another adult, they don't know what to do." "Exactly. And there's something else. I've been monitoring alien communications across the galaxy. Word is spreading about our victories. Other enslaved species are starting to rebel." President Park felt a spark of hope. "You mean we're not alone in this fight?" 6 months after the first battle, the galaxy looked very different. What started as one small human ship refusing to surrender had become something Admiral Veltar never imagined possible: a full rebellion across the Vextai Empire. On the planet, Zephyr, Call, and his fellow miners had taken control of 3 mining stations. They used human-designed weapons, simple railguns that could punch through Vextai armor. The blue-skinned Zephyrian held one of these weapons now, watching as Vextai transport ships burned in his planet's sky. "The humans were right," he told. Nara as they watched their former masters retreat. The Empire can be beaten. Similar scenes were happening on dozens of worlds. The Krillian bird people had shot down Vextai aircraft using human tactics. The rock creatures of Granite 7 had learned to use explosives to collapse Vextai fortresses. Species that had been slaves for centuries were remembering how to fight. But the biggest change was happening in Earth's solar system. Admiral Dae-ho, Kim, he had been promoted after his victories, stood on the bridge of the UES Freedom, humanity's first real warship. Unlike the converted exploration vessels they had used before, this ship was built specifically for fighting the Vextai. "Sir," Captain Bo-ram Kim reported from her station, "the combined fleet is ready." Dae-ho looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. 60 human ships floated in formation around Earth, but they weren't alone. Ships from 12 different alien species had joined them, former slaves who had broken free from the Empire. "Open a channel to all ships," Dae-ho ordered. When the channel opened, he spoke to representatives of species from across the galaxy. Zephyrians, Krillians, Drakmari, and others whose names humans were still learning to pronounce. "Friends," Dae-ho said. "6 months ago we were all alone. The Empire seemed impossible to defeat. Today we stand together as free people. Today we stop running and start hunting." President Sora Park watched the fleet from Earth's command center. Beside her, Dr. Yejin Choi smiled as she monitored the technical readouts. The scientist had been busy over the past 6 months. "Dr. Choi," the president said, "are you sure your new weapon will work?" "Positive, Madam President. We've tested it on captured Vextai equipment. The virus will spread through their biomechanical systems and shut down their technology." Virus was Dr. Choi's masterpiece, a computer program that attacked the connection between Vextai biology and their machines. The aliens had spent centuries merging their bodies with technology to become better warriors. Now that same technology was their weakness. "How long will it take to affect their entire fleet?" Defense Minister Hyun-woo Lee asked. "Once it infects one ship, it will spread to every connected vessel within hours. Their own communication systems will carry the virus for us." Meanwhile, Admiral Veltar was dealing with problems he had never faced before. Half of his empire was in rebellion. His supply lines were constantly under attack. Worst of all, he was starting to lose ships to the growing human-led alliance. "Admiral," Commander Kexra reported, "we've lost contact with the Outer Rim territories. The rebels have taken control of 14 star systems." Veltar's 4 eyes blazed with anger. "How is this possible? We have controlled those systems for 300 years. Sir, the humans have been sharing their military knowledge with the rebel species. They're all using human tactics now." "What kind of tactics?" "Guerrilla warfare, sir. They attack our weak points and avoid our strengths. They don't fight like civilized beings." Veltar was beginning to understand that civilized warfare was exactly the problem. For centuries, the Empire had fought enemies who followed the same rules they did. The humans had thrown out the rule book entirely. "Commander, prepare the fleet for hyperspace jump. We're going to Earth to end this rebellion once and for all." "Sir, what about the other rebellions?" "Once we destroy the humans, the other species will surrender. Without human leadership, they'll return to their proper place as slaves." But Veltar had made a crucial mistake. He still thought like a conqueror instead of thinking like someone fighting for survival. 3 days later, the largest space battle in galactic history began in Earth's solar system. Admiral Veltar brought 200 ships, half of the entire Vextai fleet. It should have been enough to crush the human alliance easily. "All ships, attack formation," Veltar commanded. "Destroy the human vessels first. The others will flee when they see their leaders die." But when the battle started, something unexpected happened. The Allied fleet didn't try to fight the Vextai ships directly. Instead, they scattered in all directions using the same hit-and-run tactics that had worked so well before. "Sir," Kexra reported with confusion, "they're not engaging us in formation. They're attacking individual ships from multiple directions." Veltar watched in frustration as his mighty fleet was pulled apart by dozens of smaller attacks. Every time his ships tried to focus on one group of enemies, another group would attack from behind. The humans had taught their allies well. "Concentrate fire on the human flagship," Veltar ordered. Kill their admiral and this ends. But Admiral Day-Ho was ready for that strategy. As Vextai ships moved to attack the Freedom, Captain So-Young, Park's squadron hit them from the side. When the aliens turned to face her ships, Captain Min-Ho Lee attacked from another direction. The Vextai found themselves fighting 6 different battles at the same time, spread across millions of kilometers of space. Their superior weapons and shields meant nothing when they couldn't coordinate their attacks. That's when Dr. Choi's virus struck. The first Vextai ship to be infected was Admiral Veltar's flagship, a human fighter, piloted by Lieutenant Tai Min. Park had managed to get close enough to fire a special projectile that attached to the alien ship's hull. The projectile contained Dr. Choi's virus program. Within minutes, the virus spread through the ship's biomechanical systems. Weapons stopped working. Shields failed. Life support systems began shutting down. "What's happening?" Veltar roared as his command center went dark. "Sir, all our systems are failing. The virus is in our network." "What virus?" But before Kexra could answer, the virus jumped to other ships through the fleet's communication links. One by one, the mighty Vextai warships began to drift helplessly in space. Their technology turned against them. Admiral Day-Ho watched the enemy fleet fall silent and felt no joy. Only sadness for all the lives that had been lost to bring them to this moment. "Boram, open a channel to Admiral Veltar's ship." When Veltar's image appeared on screen, the alien admiral looked defeated for the first time. His biomechanical implants were sparking and failing. His ship was powerless. "Human admiral," Veltar said quietly. "I don't understand. How did you defeat an empire that has stood for 1,000 years? Day-Ho thought carefully before answering. "Admiral, your empire conquered through fear and superior technology. You never learned to fight someone who refused to be afraid. You never faced an enemy that cared more about freedom than survival. But we were stronger than you. Our weapons were better. Our ships were larger. Yes, but you made one mistake." "What mistake?" "You tried to enslave people who remembered what it felt like to be free. When you give people a choice between slavery and death, some will always choose to fight." Veltar looked around at his failing ship, his defeated fleet, his crumbling empire. "What happens now?" "Now we build something better," Day-Ho replied. "A galaxy where people are free to choose their own path." As the battle ended, President Sora Park addressed not just Earth, but every world in the galaxy. Her message was broadcast on all frequencies in all languages. "Today we have proven that no empire is too strong to fall. No tyrant is too powerful to defeat. We offer freedom to every enslaved world, and we promise that never again will any species face extinction alone." Across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds, people looked up at the stars and saw something they had almost forgotten. Hope. The Vextai Empire, which had ruled for a millennium, fell not with the sound of laser cannons or plasma bombs, but with the sound of breaking chains as an entire galaxy remembered what freedom meant. 1 year after the fall of the Vextai Empire, the galaxy was learning how to be free. On the former capital world of the Empire, where once stood monuments to conquest, now grew gardens planted by former slaves. Admiral Day-Ho Kim walked through these gardens with an unexpected companion, former Admiral Veltar. The alien was much smaller now, his biomechanical implants removed, his natural body revealed to be more fragile than anyone had imagined. "I still don't understand how you did it," Veltar said as they stopped beside a fountain built by Zephyrian artists. "My empire controlled 1,000 worlds. My fleet was invincible." Day-Ho picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the water. "Your empire was strong, but it was also brittle, like a sword made of the finest steel, beautiful and deadly. But if you hit it just right, it shatters." "And you hit it just right?" "We hit it the only way we could. We fought like people who had everything to lose." They walked in silence for a few minutes before Veltar spoke again. "What will you do with us, the Vextai people, I mean? We are few now and weak without our technology. The same thing we're doing with everyone else, giving you a choice." Veltar stopped walking. "A choice? You can join the Galactic Liberation Alliance as equals, or you can go your own way." But you can't conquer anyone anymore. And if we choose neither? Deho shrugged. Then you choose neither. But most of your people are already joining the alliance. Turns out when you give Vextai the choice between freedom and isolation, they choose freedom too. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Sora Park was dealing with the challenges of success. The conference room was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all trying to figure out how to build a galactic government that had never existed before. The problem, said Ambassador Cole of Zephyr, is that every species wants something different. The Krillians want military protection. The Drakmari want trade agreements. The rock people of Granite 7 just want to be left alone. Dr. Yejin Choi, now serving as Earth's science advisor, nodded from her seat. That's actually good news. It means we're dealing with free people making free choices. Under the Empire, everyone wanted the same thing, just to survive. Defense. Minister Hyunwoo Lee leaned forward. The question is, how do we protect all these different choices without becoming another empire ourselves? President Park had been thinking about this problem for months. We don't protect them. We help them protect themselves. What do you mean? Asked Ambassador Nara, Cole's friend from the mining stations. Look at what worked against the Vextai. We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we shared knowledge. Every species in the rebellion learned human tactics and adapted them to their own strengths. Colonel Mi-young Lee, who had been quiet during the discussion, finally spoke up. Madam President, are you suggesting we create some kind of military academy? Not just military. Science, technology, agriculture, medicine, everything. We share what we know, and we learn from what others know. Dr. Choi smiled. A galactic university system. Exactly. Instead of one empire controlling everything, we have many peoples helping each other. The idea was simple, but revolutionary. Instead of conquest, cooperation. Instead of submission, partnership. 6 months later, the first Galactic Liberation Academy opened on a neutral world, halfway between Earth and the former Vextai capital. The academy was built by volunteers from 50 different species, each contributing their unique skills. Captain Bo-Ram Kim, now a colonel, stood before the first class of cadets. The students came from across the galaxy. Humans, Zephyrians, Krillians, even some young Vextai, who wanted to learn different ways of thinking. Before we begin, she told the class, I want you to understand something. You're not here to learn how to conquer. You're here to learn how to protect. There's a big difference. A young Vextai cadet raised his hand. Colonel Kim, what is the difference? Bo-Ram thought for a moment. When you conquer, you fight to take something from someone else. When you protect, you fight to keep something precious safe. The first kind of fighting makes you cruel. The second kind makes you strong. Another cadet, a Krillian with bright blue feathers, asked, What if someone tries to conquer us again? What if another empire rises? Then we do what humans have always done, Bo-Ram replied. We adapt, we learn, we help each other, and we never ever give up. The lessons taught at the academy were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Students learned about asymmetric warfare, but also about negotiation and diplomacy. They studied military tactics, but also art and literature from dozens of cultures. Most importantly, they learned that strength came not from dominating others, but from working together. Meanwhile, on Earth, an old soldier was thinking about the future. Sergeant Jinwoo Park, now a major, stood in his backyard watching his young daughter play. She was building something with blocks. Not a fortress or a weapon, but a bridge. Daddy, she called to him, why do the blocks work better when I use different shapes? Jinwoo smiled. Because different shapes are good at different things, sweetheart. When you put them together right, they make something stronger than any single block could be. She nodded seriously and went back to her building. Jinwoo watched her work and thought about the galaxy his generation had given her. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems to solve. But it was free. His wife, Su-Jin, joined him on the porch. What are you thinking about? The future, he said. Do you think we did the right thing? What do you mean? Fighting. The Vextai. Starting this whole war. A lot of people died. Sujin was quiet for a moment, watching their daughter build her bridge. Jin Woo, before the war, how many people were free in the galaxy? Just us, just humans. And now, billions, maybe trillions. Then we did the right thing. 5 years after the war's end, Admiral Dae-ho Kim stood once again on a ship's bridge. But this wasn't a warship. It was an exploration vessel, the UES New Horizons. His mission was peaceful, to explore the parts of the galaxy that had been closed off during the Empire's reign. His crew was mixed, humans, Zephyrians, reformed Vextai, and species he was still learning about. They worked together like they had known each other for years. Admiral, his navigator called out, "We're approaching the Andromeda signal source." For months, the Alliance had been receiving strange transmissions from outside their galaxy. The signals seemed artificial, possibly from another intelligent species. The New Horizons was going to investigate. "Are we ready for first contact?" Dae-ho asked his diverse crew. "Sir," replied his Vextai science officer, "we have translation protocols ready. We're prepared to offer friendship instead of demands." Dae-ho nodded. The galaxy had learned important lessons from the war with the Empire. The most important lesson was that the universe was big enough for everyone to be free. As the ship moved toward the signal source, Dae-ho thought about Admiral Veltar's question from years ago. "Why don't you run, human?" The answer was simple, though it had taken a war to prove it. Humans didn't run because someone had to stand up to bullies. Someone had to show the galaxy that freedom was worth fighting for. But now, they weren't running toward war. They were running toward wonder, toward discovery, toward the endless possibilities that opened up when people chose cooperation over conquest. On Earth, a monument stood in the center of Seoul. It was simple, just a block of stone with words, carved in every language of the Alliance. They asked why we didn't run. We ran toward freedom instead. Below those words were listed the names of every species that had joined the fight, and every person who had died to make the galaxy free. At the bottom, in smaller letters, was a promise. Never again will tyranny go unchallenged among the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and wonders yet to be discovered. But whatever they found out there, they would face it together. As free people, as equals, as friends. And if they ever encountered another empire like the Vextai, they would be ready. Not because they wanted war, but because they remembered the price of freedom. The stars belonged to everyone now, and everyone was determined to keep it that way.